The smell was horrific. Messalina had seen the fuller's shops in her youth. Many times she had accompanied her mother to drop off the household laundry for cleaning. She remembered the pungent odour, that of fermenting ammonia arising from stored buckets of stale urine, which mingled with the fuller's earth, the wet clay they used to absorb grease from the garments. But there was another smell in the air this time, more putrid, like something left to rot. The fullery was located a half-mile outside Rome, downwind of the city. It had to be. The odour was too offensive. Leaving her German bodyguard behind, Messalina stepped into the peristyle garden while holding a scented rag over her nose. In the enclosed garden, large vats filled with water, garments and urine were stomped by the fullery's workers. Others beat the cloth against a flat surface before twisting and wringing them free of moisture. "Domina," said the master fuller, bowing respectfully. "Your cloth is nearly ready." "I'd like to see it," she responded as the man turned, leading her to the back of the building. The smell increased, and Messalina fought the urge to gag. Small, broken shells lay in great piles around vats where snail flesh had simmered under low heat for 10 days, breaking down and putrefying the meat and releasing its noxious odours into the air. No wonder these vats were out back. "Come, see," the master fuller enticed, completely oblivious to the stench. Reaching into a wooden chest, he withdrew a large bolt of folded cloth that was dyed the richest shade of Tyrian purple she had ever seen, enough material to fashion a triumphator's toga picta. Messalina took the cloth and unfolded it, studying it with a scrutinizing gaze. The colour had a rich, velvety appearance and was applied evenly across its entire length. But was it purple enough to be viewed by the whole of Rome? "The most perfect Tyrian purple we have ever created," said the master fuller proudly. "A colour fit for a god." Messalina handed the cloth back to the fuller. "Dye it again," she said abruptly. His eyes widened. "You wish to have a Dibapha?" he asked, his voice incredulous. "But the sumptuary laws. Twice dyed purple is illegal." Messalina waved a hand. "You can leave that to me," she said. "The Senate will make an exception." As Messalina turned and made her way back through the shop to rejoin her German guard, the fuller followed behind, wringing his hands. "But the cost," he pleaded. "Domina, it takes hundreds of thousands of snails to produce even the smallest amount of purple dye, and I have other orders to fill." She turned to face him. "The cost is no issue," she said. "Use what you have in stock, procure more if you need. The others can wait." As she made her way back toward the city, where the air was at least breathable, Messalina smiled to herself. Everything was going perfectly. She had clearly been chosen a favourite of the goddess Fortuna. Not only had her marriage as a teen to a much older and crippled man led to her being raised to the title of Empress of Rome, but the birth of her son had secured a dynasty whose failure to produce lasting heirs had plagued Rome since Augustus. And now, by order of the Senate, her husband had received not only a formal triumph for his victory in Britannia, but he had also won the cognomen Britannicus, a title that, by law, would also pass to her young son. Now it would be the name Britannicus that held sway with Rome, while the name Germanicus dwindled to distant memory. The Palatium was chaos. Outside, carts filled with various items driven from Ostia were inspected by freedmen and palace servants. Strange-looking shields and spears, animal skins and helmets were catalogued and separated into piles. Inside, every manner of people from Rome's Suburra stood patiently in line, waiting their turn to be interviewed. Messalina approached the desk where the freedman Narcissus sat questioning a young man. "Age?" Narcissus queried. The man shrugged his shoulders. Narcissus eyed him. "I'd say 25 to 30, but you are not very tall." "Use him anyway," Messalina interrupted. "Not all of them have to be giants." He has a good build. Once we paint him in blue woad, he will look like a warrior." "Very well," Narcissus acquiesced, placing a mark on his parchment. He handed the man a token, which he would exchange for his pay after getting fitted for a costume. Then Narcissus sighed. He slumped into his seat and ran his fingers through his hair. "The war in Britannia still rages," he said, a slight hint of complaint in his voice. "The Emperor has sent us prisoners, yes, but not nearly enough for a triumphal parade. And Caraticus wasn't captured at Camulodunum as anticipated. He is still at large and gathering vast amounts of local support. Who are we going to portray?" Messalina smiled easily. "His brother," she said. "To Godum something or other. Didn't he fall on some battlefield?" Narcissus nodded. "Yes, Togodumnus. He died at the Battle of the Tamisis." Messalina shrugged. "So make a kingly effigy. Use him instead. It's not as if the Roman people will know the difference between the two. They just need a show, one they will remember for the rest of their lives." Again Narcissus nodded, then looked up. "And how do we show them the great booty won in the Conquest? Did you see those carts outside? Junk. How are we meant to pass that off as something that will enrich the empire?" Messalina thought for a moment. "What about gifts? Have we received any?" Narcissus nodded. "Yes," he responded. "Gifts have been arriving from all over the empire, as well as from kings and satraps allied with Rome." "Then we will use those as well," Messalina suggested. "Do the gifts not enrich the empire as well? And if it still seems sparse, we can supplement gold from the treasury, and perhaps from Paullus. He has grown incredibly wealthy in service to my husband. Just make certain those wagons are heavily guarded. We don't want the people helping themselves." Narcissus scribbled notes onto his parchment. "Polybius and Callistus can oversee the murals," Messalina continued. "They are being painted with battle scenes of Claudius riding on a war elephant and receiving the submission of Britannia's kings. Another shows a great battle where Roman soldiers actually swim across the river to surprise and then soundly defeat the enemy. Additionally, we will entertain the crowds. Minister can organise dance troupes to perform, as well as choirs to sing the hymns of Claudius. Of course, the Senate will also walk in their finest white togas, and the crowds will be fed well and given plenty of wine." Messalina placed her hands on Narcissus's shoulders. "Do not worry," she said, leaning close to his ear. "Rome has not seen a triumph in almost 3 decades, when Germanicus rode. They will remember Claudius's triumph forever." Claudius returned to Rome about a week before the triumphal date. Like all conquering generals, he was not permitted to cross Rome's sacred pomerium until his triumphal entry into the city. But he was still emperor, and naturally drew to himself those magistrates and senators who needed immediate decisions. But Messalina chose not to leave the city, and instead wrote him a letter begging his forgiveness, that she might spend every waking moment on the details of his triumph, a spectacle she hoped would please him greatly. And Claudius did forgive her. On the morning of the triumph, outside the Porta Triumphalis, the gate through which all triumphators rode, she flew into his arms and covered his face with kisses. "Darling Claudius," she purred, "how I've missed you. Now that the whole of our see belongs to Rome, promise you will never leave me again." On the Campus Martius, thousands mingled. Dancers, soldiers, musicians and senators. They moved with purpose, taking their places amongst the line of wagons laden with treasures of gold and iron and weapons, alongside floats depicting great scenes of battle, all waiting to be taken along the triumphal route before the cheering crowds. Finally, the trumpet sounded. From the forum, Messalina heard the roar of the crowd as the priests began making their ceremonial dedications to the gods. When the musicians crossed through the Porta Triumphalis, Messalina could see the flowers flying through the air, thrown from the waiting crowds. After the musicians came the dancers, led by Mnester, all bending, twisting and turning, their choreography precise. Then the wooden wheels of the floats grumbled along the ground as the wagons were pulled through the gate in single file, their detailed and colourful murals leaving the watching crowds in awe as they disappeared into the heart of the city. As the Senate, dressed in their most pristine white togas with purple borders and holding palm fronds in their hands, got into place to follow the murals, Messalina handed her husband's golden laurel wreath to the servant chosen to ride with him. It was his duty to hold the wreath over Claudius's head as he rode, while repeating the words, "Memento mori," remember, thou art mortal. As Claudius, marvellous in his gold-bordered Dibapha toga, climbed into his quadriga and settled himself into the seat, the freedmen lifted Messalina's young children, Octavia and Britannicus, into the triumphal chariot, where they sat excitedly on either side of their father. After the senators had gone, followed by the prisoners, all painted blue and bound in chains, Claudius's quadriga pulled forward and passed slowly through the gate to the sound of explosive cheers. As the soldiers Claudius selected to participate in the triumph fell into formation, prepared to follow their emperor through the gate, where they would sing bawdy songs to the crowd's delight, Messalina removed the cloak she had worn, revealing the rich Tyrian Dibapha purple she had used in her own stola. Then she climbed into her carpentum, an ornate two-wheeled carriage that Claudius had secured her the honour of riding in. After her husband, but before his legions, Messalina's driver pulled through the gate, where flower petals and burnt incense rained down from the cheering crowds who shouted her name as she rode by, waving grandly. Never before had a woman been honoured in a Roman military triumph. Not Livia Drusilla, the new goddess, and not Agrippina, the wife of Germanicus. None. She was the first. As Messalina's carpentum wound its way along the triumphal route towards the temple of Jupiter Optimus Maximus, the Empress of Rome smiled to herself. Messalina had finally come in to her own.